The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the private dining room at Le Bernardin, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. Marcus Chen adjusted his simple gray suit, the same one he'd worn to countless board meetings, though no one here knew that. To everyone at this table, he was just Margaret's quiet, unassuming husband who worked somewhere in finance. Another toast. Margaret's voice rang out, slightly slurred from her third glass of champagne. Her designer dress shimmered as she stood, commanding attention as she always did. To 10 years of marriage. Their friends raised their glasses, smiling. Marcus lifted his as well, noticing how Margaret's eyes kept drifting to David Thornton, the charismatic marketing executive sitting across from them. David worked at Meridian Industries, though he didn't know that the company's true owner was sitting right beside Margaret. You know, Margaret continued, her words taking on an edge that Marcus recognized all too well. When I married Marcus, everyone said I was settling. And honestly, she laughed, a sound that cut through him like glass. They weren't entirely wrong. The table fell into an uncomfortable silence. Marcus felt his chest tighten, but his face remained impassive. Years of high-stakes negotiations had taught him to hide his emotions. Maggie, maybe... Her friend Rachel tried to interject. No, let me finish. Margaret waved her hand dismissively. I mean, look at him. Simple Marcus with his simple suits and simple life. While I'm out there closing real estate deals, networking with people who matter, he's... What do you even do all day, darling? Marcus met her eyes. I manage investments. Investments, she repeated mockingly. Such a vague answer. That's Marcus for you. Vague, simple, unambitious. She turned to David, her hand briefly touching his arm. Not like some people who actually have drive and passion. David smiled uncomfortably, clearly enjoying the attention but sensing the cruelty in her words. He had no idea that his recent promotion to senior director, his corner office, his generous salary, all of it came from the man being humiliated across the table. Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from his CFO. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Quarterly reports ready. Meridian showing strong growth. He typed back quickly. Reschedule. I'll be handling some personal matters. Even now, on our anniversary, he's on his phone, Margaret announced to the table. Probably checking his modest little portfolio. You see what I mean? No presence. No charisma. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd married someone with real ambition. Her eyes locked with David's for a moment too long. Marcus placed his phone face down on the table. He looked at his wife, really looked at her. The woman he'd loved for 10 years. The woman he'd built an empire for while living modestly to respect her desire for a normal life, away from corporate politics. She'd always said she didn't want the pressure of being married to a CEO, that she valued simplicity and authenticity. He'd believed her. He'd hidden his success, kept his name off public records, operated through proxies and shell corporations, all to give her the simple life she claimed to want. But now he saw the truth. She didn't want simple. She wanted to feel superior to him while pursuing men she deemed more worthy. You're right, Margaret, Marcus said quietly, standing from the table. Everyone looked at him in surprise. He so rarely spoke up during her performances. I am simple. I believed in simple things, like loyalty, like respect, like the vows we took 10 years ago today. He pulled out his wallet, placed a black American Express Centurion card on the table. The bill would be over $10,000 for their party. Margaret had never seen this card. No one had dinners on me. Happy anniversary. As Marcus walked toward the exit, he heard Margaret's nervous laugh. Drama queen, she called out. He'll be back. He always comes back. But this time, Marcus thought as he stepped into the cool night air, he wouldn't. The next morning would change everything. Margaret woke with a pounding headache and the dim awareness that she'd drunk too much champagne. Sunlight streamed through the curtains of their Upper West Side apartment and she reached across the bed instinctively. Empty. Marcus? She called out, her voice hoarse. Silence answered her. She sat up, noticing details that made her stomach turn. His nightstand was cleared. The leather-bound book he'd been reading, his reading glasses, the small photo of them from their honeymoon in Santorini. All gone. Margaret threw off the covers and rushed to the closet. The entire right side was empty. His suits, his shoes, his ties, everything removed with surgical precision. Not a trace of him remained. No, she muttered, panic rising in her throat. This wasn't like the other arguments. He'd never left before, never taken his things. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. Need to talk. It's urgent. Can you meet? She ignored it and called Marcus instead. Straight to voicemail. Marcus, honey, about last night, I was drunk. I didn't mean those things. Please come home so we can talk about this. She tried 3 more times. Each call went unanswered. By noon, Margaret was pacing the apartment, her panic transforming into anger. How dare he make her worry like this? Over some stupid comments? She'd been venting. Everyone vents about their spouse sometimes. He was being childish. Her phone rang. David. Not now, David. I'm dealing with something. Margaret, listen to me. I got fired this morning. Security escorted me out of Meridian. They terminated my entire department. Everyone who attended that dinner last night. Margaret's blood ran cold. What? That's insane. On what grounds? The letter said conduct unbecoming of Meridian Industries values and cited a conflict of interest. Margaret, what the hell happened at that dinner after I left? Nothing. Marcus left and everyone else just waited for the bill. He paid with some fancy credit card I'd never seen before, but what kind of card? I don't know. It was black, had his name. She paused. Wait, it didn't say Marcus Chen. It said M. Chen. And there was something else, a title maybe? I didn't look closely. David's breathing became rapid. Margaret, I need you to find out exactly who your husband is. Do it now. My career just imploded, and I think it has everything to do with him. After hanging up, Margaret booted up her laptop with shaking hands. She'd never really investigated Marcus's work. He'd said he managed investments, worked for a private firm, kept irregular hours. She'd been so focused on her own real estate career that she'd never questioned it deeply. She started with a simple Google search. Marcus Chen, New York. Dozens of results appeared, too many Marcus Chens. She refined it. Marcus Chen Investments, Manhattan. The results made her frown. Articles about Meridian Industries, about Chen Holdings, about a mysterious CEO who avoided the spotlight. She clicked on one from Forbes. The Invisible Billionaire, How Marcus Chen Built a Fortune While Staying Off the Radar. Her hands trembled as she read. Marcus Chen, 38, is one of New York's most successful yet least known entrepreneurs. The founder and sole owner of Chen Holdings and its subsidiary, Meridian Industries. Chen has built a portfolio worth an estimated $2.3 billion while maintaining almost complete anonymity. Unlike his flashy counterparts, Chen lives modestly, attends no galas, and has successfully kept his personal life entirely private. The article was 3 years old. Margaret's vision blurred as she kept reading. Chen's business philosophy centers on loyalty and integrity. Sources close to the reclusive CEO say he's known for quietly supporting employees who demonstrate these values and swiftly removing those who don't. Marcus doesn't forgive betrayal. Like says a former board member who spoke on condition of anonymity. Once you've broken his trust, you're dead to him. Margaret's phone slipped from her hands. Meridian Industries. David's company. Marcus's company, the black credit card. The calm demeanor during her humiliation. The way he'd simply said, I manage investments, when she'd mocked him in front of everyone. She ran to the bathroom and vomited. When she returned to the living room, there was an envelope that hadn't been there before, slipped under the door. Her name was written on it in Marcus's careful handwriting. Inside, a brief note. Margaret, by now you've likely discovered what I've kept hidden for the sake of our marriage. You said you wanted simplicity, so I gave you that. You said you didn't want the complications of corporate life, so I shielded you from mine. Last night, you made it clear that my simplicity, my quiet nature, and my choice to honor your wishes made you view me as less than. You humiliated me in front of our friends while openly flirting with an employee of my company. I built everything for us, Margaret. Every success, every acquisition, every late night, it was all to give us a future. But you saw it as nothing. The apartment is yours. The documents are being drawn up by my attorneys. You'll be well provided for in the divorce, though nothing close to half our prenuptial agreement, which you signed without reading because you trusted simple Marcus, is ironclad. Don't try to contact me. I've changed my numbers. My attorneys will handle everything from here. I hope you find the ambitious, charismatic man you're looking for. Perhaps David Thornton would have been perfect, but unfortunately, men who show romantic interest in married women don't align with Meridian Industries' values. Goodbye, Margaret M. Margaret read the note 3 times before it truly sank in. Then she screamed. 3 days after the anniversary dinner, Margaret sat in her best friend Rachel's kitchen, mascara streaking down her face for the 100th time. He won't answer any calls. His assistant, because of course he has an assistant, probably a whole fleet of them, just keeps saying Mr. Chen is unavailable and has referred all matters to his legal team. Margaret's voice cracked. Rachel, I destroyed my marriage over a stupid drunken moment of ego. Rachel poured more wine, her expression sympathetic but tinged with something Margaret couldn't quite read. Mags, I need to be honest with you. We all knew you were unhappy. The way you talked about Marcus, the way you'd compare him to other men, it wasn't just that night. Margaret's head snapped up. What? You've been putting him down for years. Little comments here and there. How he was too quiet, too boring, not ambitious enough. Some of us wondered why he stayed. Rachel paused. Now we know he was actually running a billion-dollar company while you called him unambitious. That's kind of devastating, Mags. The truth of it hit Margaret like a physical blow. She thought back to countless dinner parties, brunches, girls' nights where she'd made jokes at Marcus's expense. The time she'd called him my little houseplant because he was just sort of there. The way she'd rolled her eyes when describing his boring investment job to her clients. Thought I was just venting, Margaret whispered. Couples joke about each other. There's a difference between joking and contempt, Rachel said gently. And honey, what you showed that night crossed a line. You were practically eye-fucking David right in front of Marcus. Margaret buried her face in her hands. David. That was another disaster entirely. After being fired from Meridian, David had sent her dozens of messages, angry at first, demanding she fix it, asking what her husband, the investor, had to do with his termination. When news broke that Marcus Chen was actually the CEO of Meridian Industries, David's tone had changed from angry to desperate. Can you talk to him? Tell him it wasn't my fault? I have a mortgage, Margaret. I need this job back, but the worst message had come yesterday. My wife left me. She said I was fired for having an affair with a client's wife. That's what HR told her. Your husband destroyed my marriage and my career because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. Stay the hell away from me. Margaret's own career was suffering too. Word had spread through Manhattan's tight-knit real estate community about her anniversary dinner debacle. Clients were canceling viewings. Her broker had pulled her aside yesterday to say, maybe take some time off until this blows over. But it wouldn't blow over. She'd humiliated one of New York's most powerful men, a man who'd managed to build an empire while keeping his name out of the papers, a man who valued privacy and loyalty above all else. Her phone buzzed, an email from an attorney's office. With trembling hands, she opened it. The divorce papers were comprehensive and devastating. Marcus was offering her $5 million, generous by most standards, but a fraction of his actual wealth. The prenup she'd signed a decade ago, back when she'd thought Marcus was just a junior analyst at some investment firm, was airtight. All she'd have to do was sign. I need to see him, Margaret said suddenly, standing up. I need to explain, to apologize properly. If I could just talk to him face to face, Mags, no. He's made it clear. I don't care what he's made clear. Margaret's voice rose to a shout. 10 years of marriage doesn't end because of one bad night. I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but I deserve the chance to fix this. Rachel looked at her with pity. Do you love him? Or do you love what you just found out he is? The question hung in the air like poison. Margaret wanted to say of course she loved him, that she'd always loved him. But the truth was more complicated. She'd loved the idea of Marcus, stable, predictable, safe. She'd loved having someone who didn't challenge her, who let her shine, who asked for so little. But now she knew he'd never asked for little. He'd given her everything while asking only for respect and loyalty, and she'd given him neither. I need to try, Margaret said finally. I need to at least try. She found the address through a contact in the real estate world, something she probably shouldn't have been able to do, but money and connections talked. Marcus owned a penthouse in Tribeca, purchased 4 years ago under one of his holding companies. Margaret stood in the lobby of the luxury building, her heart pounding. The doorman, impeccably dressed, regarded her with professional courtesy that didn't reach his eyes. I'm here to see Marcus Chen. I'm his wife. Mr. Chen left instructions regarding you. Mrs. Chen, I'm not to grant you access. Please, Margaret's voice broke. Just call up to him. Tell him I need 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to apologize. The doorman's expression softened slightly, but he shook his head. Ma'am, Mr. Chen isn't here. He left the country 3 days ago. I don't know when he's returning. Margaret felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. Left the country where? I'm not at liberty to say. She tried the attorney's next, calling the number from the email. After being transferred 3 times, she finally reached someone who would speak to her. Mrs. Chen, Mr. Chen has been very clear. He doesn't wish to have any contact with you outside of the divorce proceedings. If you sign the papers, this can all be finalized quickly and quietly. But I need to talk to him. To explain, there's nothing to explain. Mr. Chen was present for the events in question. He understands the situation completely. Then let me apologize. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When the attorney spoke again, his voice held a note of something almost like sympathy. Mrs. Chen, I've worked with Marcus Chen for 8 years. In that time, I've seen him negotiate deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I've seen him make decisions that affected thousands of employees. And I've never seen him angry or vindictive. Then why? But I have seen him remove people from his life with absolute finality when they betray his trust. There's no negotiation, no second chances. He simply cuts them out completely and moves on. The attorney took a breath. He's not punishing you, Mrs. Chen. He's just done. The marriage ended the moment you showed him contempt in front of others. Everything since then has just been paperwork. Margaret hung up and sank onto a bench outside the attorney's building. Pedestrians rushed past her, everyone busy with their important New York lives, and she realized with horrible clarity that Marcus had gone back to his real life, the one filled with board meetings and business deals and important decisions. The life he'd hidden from her, because she'd said she wanted simplicity. She'd been so blind. 6 weeks after the anniversary dinner, Margaret sat alone in the apartment that had once been their home. Boxes lined the walls. She was moving out at the end of the month to a smaller place in Brooklyn. The $5 million settlement would be transferred once she signed the papers, which still sat on the coffee table, untouched. She couldn't bring herself to sign them. Signing meant it was truly over. Her phone rang. Rachel again, checking in as she'd done every few days since that horrible night. Margaret let it go to voicemail. She'd become tired of the same conversations, the same hollow reassurances that she'd bounce back and find someone who deserved her. But did she deserve anyone after what she'd done? Margaret opened her laptop and fell down a rabbit hole she'd been avoiding, really researching Marcus Chen. Not just the Forbes articles, but everything. She created a timeline of their marriage against his business achievements, and what she discovered made her sick. Year 1 of their marriage. Marcus had launched Meridian Industries with $3 million in seed money he'd earned from previous investments. She remembered that year. He'd worked insane hours, often sleeping at his office for days at a time. She'd complained constantly about him never being home. Year 2, Meridian's first major acquisition. Marcus had come home excited, wanted to tell her about a deal he'd closed. But she'd been focused on her own success. She'd just gotten her real estate license and didn't want to hear about his boring corporate stuff. Year 3. The prenup suddenly made sense now. His lawyers had insisted on it, and she'd been insulted at first, had almost called off the wedding. Marcus had apologized profusely, said his firm required it, promised it would never matter because they'd be together forever. She'd signed it without reading it, thinking he was just some mid-level analyst with a paranoid employer. Years 4 through 7. Meridian's explosive growth. Multiple acquisitions, expansion into international markets. She had vague memories of Marcus mentioning business trips, but she'd been so absorbed in building her own career that she'd barely listened. How many nights had she gone to sleep without even asking how his day was? Year 8. Marcus had suggested they start a family. She'd laughed it off, said she was too focused on becoming a top broker. Looking back, she saw the hurt in his eyes that she'd been too self-absorbed to notice. Year 9. Marcus had stopped talking about work entirely. She'd thought it was because he had nothing interesting to share. Now she realized he'd given up trying to connect with her about the thing that consumed most of his waking hours. Year 10. She'd humiliated him publicly, flirted with his employee, and destroyed everything. Margaret found an interview Marcus had given to a business journal, published just 2 months before their anniversary. The journalist had asked about his personal life, a rare question he'd agreed to answer. "I believe in keeping my professional and personal lives separate," Marcus had said. My wife values privacy and simplicity, and I respect that. Success means nothing if you lose the people you love in the pursuit of it. I've built something substantial, but my marriage, that's what I'm most proud of. Everything I've done has been for the future I want to build with her. Margaret closed the laptop and sobbed. A knock at the door interrupted her breakdown. She wiped her face and opened it to find Jennifer Wu, one of her former clients, and she now realized one of Marcus's business associates. Margaret. May I come in? They sat in the living room, an awkward silence filling the space. Jennifer was a corporate lawyer who'd bought 3 properties through Margaret over the years. They'd been friendly, had gone to lunch occasionally. I debated coming here, Jennifer said finally. But I keep thinking about that anniversary dinner, and I feel like you deserve to know something. Margaret's chest tightened. What? Marcus asked me to attend as your friend, but I was also there representing Chen Holdings. We were supposed to announce a major partnership that night. Something that would have made the news, been huge for both of us. Jennifer paused. He was going to tell you everything. About the company, about his success, all of it. He'd finally convinced himself that 10 years was long enough, that you were secure enough in your marriage to handle the truth. The room spun. He was going to tell me? That night was supposed to be a celebration. Our anniversary, yes, but also the beginning of you two finally sharing his real life. Jennifer's expression was conflicted. But then you made those comments, and I watched him shut down completely. He texted me from the table, just 3 words, deal is off. Oh my God. Margaret felt bile rise in her throat. That partnership would have been worth $400 million over 5 years. He walked away from it because he couldn't bear to sit at that table another minute. Jennifer leaned forward. Margaret, I've known Marcus professionally for 6 years. He's the most principled man I've ever met. He once turned down a 9-figure deal because the other party tried to bribe a city official. He's donated millions to charity anonymously, and he protected you from his world because you asked him to, even though it probably made his life significantly more complicated. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, Jennifer interrupted. I've heard you talk about him, Margaret. The jokes, the dismissive comments. You treated him like an accessory, like someone who was lucky to be married to you. She stood up. I'm not here to make you feel worse. I just thought you should understand what you actually lost. It wasn't just a quiet husband with a boring job. You lost a man who loved you enough to hide who he was because you asked him to. After Jennifer left, Margaret finally picked up the divorce papers. Really read them this time. In addition to the $5 million, Marcus was ensuring she kept all her own business assets, her car, even the expensive jewelry he'd bought her over the years. Pieces she'd thought were just nice gifts from a husband trying his best, but which she now realized were genuine treasures he could easily afford. There was a clause she'd missed before. Furthermore, Marcus Chen agrees not to interfere in any way with Margaret Chen's real estate business, and will not use his influence in the Manhattan business community to affect her professional reputation. Despite having grounds to do so, he was protecting her. Even now, even after everything, he was making sure she'd be okay. Margaret's hands shook as she signed the papers. Not because she wanted the marriage to end, but because she finally understood that Jennifer was right. Marcus had already moved on. He'd made his decision that night at the restaurant, and nothing she said or did would change it. She'd spent 10 years with a man who would have given her the world, and she'd never bothered to see him clearly until it was too late. The pen felt heavy as she signed her name on the final page. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Marcus's new office in Singapore. 6 months had passed since that anniversary dinner, and he'd relocated Chen Holdings' primary operations to Asia, where new markets and opportunities awaited. The move had been good for business and better for his peace of mind. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee in hand, watching the city come to life below. His phone buzzed with a message from his attorney in New York. Divorce finalized. All documents filed. You're officially free. Marcus felt nothing. No relief, no sadness, just a quiet acknowledgement that a chapter of his life had closed. His assistant knocked and entered. Mr. Chen, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes, and you have 3 requests for interviews. Forbes wants to do a follow-up piece, and Bloomberg is asking about the new expansion. Decline them all as always, Marcus said. Privacy is still my priority. Of course, sir. After she left, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. The truth was, he'd learned something valuable from his marriage to Margaret. even if the lesson had been painful. He'd hidden himself away thinking he was protecting their relationship, but really he'd been enabling her disrespect. He'd made himself small to make her comfortable, and she'd treated him as small. Never again. His phone rang, a video call from his mother in San Francisco. He answered, smiling at her concerned face. "Marcus, you look tired. Are you eating enough?" "I'm fine, Mom, better than fine, actually. Have you spoken to her?" He knew she meant Margaret. "No, it's over. Completely over," his mother sighed. "I never liked how she talked to you. A wife should build her husband up, not tear him down. But I know you loved her." "I did," Marcus agreed. "But I loved an idea of her, of us. The reality was that we wanted different things. She wanted to feel superior to someone, and I wanted a partner who respected me. So what now? You work yourself to death in Singapore?" Marcus laughed. "Actually, I've been taking more time for myself. Painting again like I used to before I got so focused on building the company. I joined a gym, made some friends who don't care about my bank account. And dating? Mom," he said, exasperated but affectionate. "I'm just saying you're 38, successful, handsome, and recently divorced. I'm not rushing into anything." But even as he said it, Marcus thought about Yuki, the art gallery owner he'd met last month. They'd had coffee twice, and she'd been refreshingly uninterested in his corporate success, far more excited to discuss the impressionist exhibit she was curating. After saying goodbye to his mother, Marcus returned to the window. His phone buzzed again. This time a message from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he opened it. "Marcus, it's Margaret. I know I shouldn't contact you and I know you won't respond, but I needed to say this once. I'm sorry. Not for losing you, though I am, but for never really seeing you when I had you. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I hope Singapore is good to you. I hope you find someone who appreciates you for exactly who you are. You're not simple, you never were. You were profound and I was too shallow to recognize it. Be well." Marcus read the message 3 times. There was no manipulation in it. No request for reconciliation or forgiveness. Just a genuine apology that came 6 months too late. He deleted the message without responding. Some doors, once closed, were meant to stay that way. Meanwhile, back in New York, Margaret locked her Brooklyn apartment and headed out for her morning run. 6 months of therapy, career rebuilding, and genuine soul-searching had changed her. The real estate market had been rough. She'd lost major clients and had to start over with smaller deals, but she was slowly climbing back. She'd moved on from the luxury properties of Manhattan to helping young families find their first homes in Brooklyn and Queens. The commissions were smaller, but the work felt more meaningful. One couple had cried when she found them a place they could afford. Their genuine gratitude had meant more than any 6-figure deal. Rachel jogged up beside her. "Ready?" As they ran through Prospect Park, Rachel said, "David got a new job, by the way. Some tech startup. Heard his wife took him back." Margaret nodded. She'd run into David once, 3 months ago, at a coffee shop. They'd acknowledged each other with brief nods. 2 people who'd made terrible mistakes and were living with the consequences. "I got asked out yesterday," Margaret said suddenly, "by that teacher I met at the bookstore." "Yeah? What did you say?" "I said I needed more time." Margaret slowed to a walk, catching her breath. "But maybe I don't. Maybe I've done enough work on myself to try again." "You have changed," Rachel observed. "You're humbler, more real. Losing everything will do that to you." Margaret smiled sadly. "The ironic thing is, I finally became the person who could have appreciated Marcus. But it's too late." They walked in silence for a moment before Rachel asked, "Do you still love him?" Margaret considered the question carefully. "I love who he was and I hate who I was with him. But no, I don't think I'm in love with him anymore. I'm grieving what we could have been if I'd been better." Her phone buzzed, the teacher confirming their date for tomorrow night. Margaret surprised herself by responding yes. Life moved forward, with or without permission. 2 years later, Marcus stood in a private art gallery in Tokyo, his arm around Yuki as they admired a painting he'd completed last month. It had sold for $50,000, all of which he donated to a foundation supporting underprivileged artists. "You're getting better," Yuki said, her eyes warm with pride. "This one has real emotion in it." Marcus had never told Yuki about his wealth, not directly. She knew he was in business and traveled often. but she'd fallen in love with the man who showed up at her gallery every Saturday, who listened intently when she talked about art theory, who'd painted alongside her in her studio. When she'd eventually Googled him, because she'd gotten curious about why he flew business class everywhere, she'd sat him down and asked him directly, "Why didn't you tell me you're some kind of business mogul?" "Because that's not the interesting part of me," he'd replied. "At least I hope it's not." She'd kissed him then and said, "The interesting part is that you see beauty in small things. That's what I love about you." Now, standing in this gallery, Marcus thought about how different his life was. He'd learned to balance work with joy, ambition with presence. He'd learned that hiding yourself, whether out of humility or fear, only created distance. "I have something to tell you," Marcus said, turning to Yuki. "You sound serious. I want to marry you, but before I ask officially, I need you to know exactly who I am, what my life involves, all of it. No secrets, no surprises." Yuki smiled, her hand finding his. "I already know who you are, Marcus, but I'm listening." That night he told her everything, about Meridian Industries, about his past marriage, about the lessons he'd learned the hard way. When he finished, Yuki was quiet for a long moment. "Thank you for trusting me," she finally said. "And yes, I'll marry you, but on one condition. Anything. We keep Saturday mornings for art, no matter how important the business deal, no matter what's happening in the world. Every Saturday morning we paint together." Marcus pulled her close. "Deal." Back in Brooklyn, Margaret attended her younger brother's wedding, watching him dance with his new wife with genuine happiness in his eyes. Her date, James the teacher, brought her a glass of champagne. "They look happy," he observed. "They do." Margaret smiled. "They really see each other, you know? That's the key to it all." James took her hand. "I see you." And Margaret realized with a contentment she'd never felt with Marcus that she saw him too. Not the successful version or the impressive version, just the real version. A kind man who taught middle school history, who volunteered at a soup kitchen on weekends, who made her laugh and challenged her to be better. She'd never tell him about her past with Marcus, not the details anyway. That chapter was closed, the lessons learned. She'd carried guilt for a long time. But therapy had taught her that growing from your mistakes was better than drowning in them. "Want to dance?" James asked. "Yeah," Margaret said, setting down her champagne. "I really do." As they moved to the dance floor, Margaret caught her reflection in a window. She looked different than she had 2 years ago, softer somehow, more at peace. She'd lost the designer wardrobe and the expensive highlights, but she'd gained something infinitely more valuable: self-awareness and genuine humility. The past couldn't be changed. Marcus was halfway around the world, living his best life with someone who appreciated him properly. And she was here, building something real with someone who fit who she'd become. Sometimes the ending isn't about reconciliation or revenge. Sometimes it's simply about two people moving forward separately, carrying lessons learned into healthier futures. The door to Marcus's mansion had never opened again. Not for her. But Margaret had found other doors, ones that led to places she actually wanted to go, and that in the end was enough.